The only exit was blocked. He was trapped. He knew coming to Raven Creek was a mistake. Like everywhere else in Kentucky, Raven Creek was quickly overrun by the zombie outbreak that occurred 10 years ago. And while there are still a few brave, foolish people that try to survive there, most know to avoid it at all cost. It's just too dangerous out there. Instead of taking his chances out in that death trap, Franklin found an old abandoned farmhouse on the outskirts of Raven Creek that he now called home. It was nothing compared to the life he had 10 years prior, before the outbreak. But out there, it was mostly peaceful and quiet. But he lived a lonely life of solitude. Well, that was until one day, the military radio he kept on the emergency broadcast station finally picked up a transmission. It was a message from the military. They said they had a cure, and in 3 days they would fly into Raven Creek at an extraction point on one of the helicopter landing pads in the city. Was this real? Could it be a trap? At this point, Franklin didn't really care. He lost hope years ago when everyone else close to him perished. For the first time in a long time, he had hope. Franklin packed a bag with enough food for a few days and his weapons. He had to pack light if he wanted to make it there on time. Getting into the city wouldn't be hard, but navigating to the extraction point without getting lost could pose a challenge if things got hairy. Entering the city from the southeast side, he would try to keep a low profile and make his way through the main streets and try to find safe places to rest along the way. Would Franklin be able to make it to the extraction point? Only time would tell. But first, a message from this video's sponsor. Hey there, busy YouTuber guy. Spending hours on your computer and feeling major eye strain in your eyes from all that excessive blue light beaming into your retinas? Losing sleep because of this? Has the lack of sleep affected your physique?
Oh, hey baby.
Does your wife even find you attractive anymore? Yeah, you've let yourself go a little bit. Well, don't worry, we've got your back. With GMG Performance eyeglasses, not only will you look better, but you'll see better too.
Wow, I look great. My eyes feel so much better.
These glasses work as a shield against blue light, reducing eye strain, improving your concentration, and even help preserve the quality of your sleep. Between work, editing videos, and gaming, I'm looking at a computer screen all the time, and I can feel the difference in my eye fatigue since I started using these bad boys.
Oh, hey baby.
They also look pretty darn good. Don't settle for less. Give your eyes the relief they deserve while looking better than ever.
And thank you, GMG Performance eyeglasses, for saving my marriage.
GMG also offers sleeping gummies, which are the perfect companion with your new glasses to help with your sleep-related troubles. If you use my link posted in the description below, you'll receive a 25% discount. But this offer is only available for the first 48 hours from this video going live, so you better move quickly. Look better while looking better with GMG Performance eyeglasses today. Now, back to the video.
Okay.
Franklin made it through the fenced perimeter and was about to enter Raven Creek. He had the military radio attached to his belt to make the call when he arrived, but he had to keep moving. At this point, the entire city was overcome by nature. It would be harder to navigate the streets like this. Minutes after entering, he was already approached by a small group of undead. His grip tightened around his trusty bat. It was time to get messy. A few crushed skulls later, Franklin had a moment to catch his breath. He searched the corpses for anything valuable, but had no luck. It was time to continue. Commercial buildings and outlets were popping up. Not much longer, he would pass the residential district and then be in the heart of Raven Creek. But it wouldn't hurt to detour for a few minutes to check for supplies. He hopped the fence and readied his weapon as he came out of the small opening. It looked clear for a moment until he finished it off quickly. There were more here than he realized, and the noise alerted the rest of the zombies, backing up slowly and beating them down. As long as he was careful, this tactic worked well against groups of the undead. Another moment of peace. He checked the small kitchen for any supplies, but all he found was food that's been rotting for far too long. The stench almost made him retch. While trying to sneak back out, more approached him. Hello there. This one used to be a bit of a funny bunny for the gentleman, it seemed. Franklin couldn't help himself and took the bunny ears. It seemed her friend wasn't pleased with Franklin's new look and tried to get the jump on him. He heard more nearby. This was the problem with Raven Creek. When you saw one zombie, there were dozens more nearby waiting for you to make a mistake. As he laid another one out, he caught a glimpse of the large group that was coming from the other buildings. It was time to turn and run. As long as he kept his cool and didn't panic, he could escape groups of them while conserving most of his energy. This would be critical when he got deeper into the city. More buildings ahead and more zombies in the open. Of course, even behind him where he thought it was clear, they would try to sneak up on him. Always stay alert. Always be ready. The trees that grew in the streets impaired his vision. This made things even more dangerous as he killed another one and saw a group that was now attracted to him. More tried to close in around him, but Franklin knew to find an open space where he could easily maneuver and whittle them down. Slowly back up and swing hard. His trusty bat did the rest of the work. But even moving slowly and conserving his energy, every swing and every head he crushed wore him out little by little. He was already starting to get exhausted. He had to find a safe place to rest. Progression into the city was slow, but steady. It was already 20 till 7. There was an apartment complex nearby that could be a good place to rest up for the remainder of the evening. He found a window that wasn't surrounded by broken glass. It opened up easily and the coast looked clear. He climbed inside. He made his way to the 3rd floor and it appeared safe. He closed the door to a bedroom and locked himself inside. To make sure he didn't oversleep, he set an alarm for 4 a.m. He laid on the bed and threw his head down on the soft cushion and closed his eyes. The alarm only rang for a moment before he shut it off. It did its job waking him up, but he didn't want the noise to alert anything nearby. He was up and ready to continue on. Franklin left back out the way he came in and crept down hoping there would be less zombie activity before sunrise. Well, so much for less activity. While creeping through the cover of the fog, a car alarm went off somewhere nearby. Did a zombie or another survivor trigger that? It didn't really matter at this point, and Franklin could use this to his advantage. The zombies were all moving towards the sound, which unfortunately was in the direction that he was planning on going towards too, but instead he would take the long way around. But he had to be extra careful since the noise was attracting them from a wide radius. Out of nowhere, another survivor ran out in front of Franklin. She had a panicked look on her face. She must have been the cause for setting off the alarm. She was drawing more attention to the both of them. Staying by her would be a death trap, so he quickly split while crouching, hoping to slip past the zombies and use her as bait. His plan didn't really work and a small horde was chasing him. He jumped a large fence nearby that would separate him from the horde. The zombies were too clumsy to get past the fence, and this allowed him to escape into the trees. He managed to lose them, but the trees here were way more dense than he was expecting. He came through a clearing and took a quick break in an unlocked house. Inside, he found quite the treasure. A fully working Game Boy. Now this might not seem like much, but when it's been 10 years since you've seen a video game console that you could actually play, it was kind of a big deal. Now if he could only find a game to play on it. Hearing more zombies nearby, he left the house and saw another wooded area where he thought he could lose them. It was hard maneuvering through the trees, but there was a clearing nearby, and as he got closer to the exit, another alarm went off. Hoping it was far enough away to lure any nearby zombies out from his location, he crept on. Inside the nearby storage shed, he thought he heard the sounds of flesh and bone being crunched. Morbid curiosity got the best of him, and when he got close, he saw a zombie knelt over, feasting on a fresh kill. It was a disgusting noise. With a single well-placed swing of his bat, the haunting sound stopped. Before he could investigate further, he realized that he overstayed his visit. Behind him were more zombies traveling towards the alarm, and now he was their main target. There was nowhere safe to turn except for the fence that led back into the overgrowth. He climbed the fence again and hoped it was enough to lose them. On the other side of the trees, there was a building that he could lay low in while things calmed down outside. Sneaking around the corner, he found a window that pried open and he climbed through. So far it was clear, and inside the storage lockers, Franklin found a hiking bag which was much better than his current duffel bag. He emptied the contents of his bag on the floor and transferred them into his new bag, which was a great find. The issue is that he heard rustling and banging from the inside, and his time here was limited. He left the building, and as he walked the perimeter of the trees, 2 more zombies approached him. He readied his bat and swung, and again, then shoved them back, and swung again. Oh no. He missed the next swing and it sunk into his chest. In a panic and rage, he beat them both down and finished them off. Pain seared through his chest and down his arms and back. He began to check himself, but another zombie came from behind. He fled back into the trees while trying to tend to his wound. It was the worst case scenario. He was bitten. He immediately poured disinfectant on the wound, and while getting out a bandage, he was jumped by another zombie. He fled through the trees again and bought himself enough time to apply the bandage and escape. One foolish mistake. A single miss from his bat and it was all over. He didn't know how much time he had before he'd turn. Before he knew it, he arrived in the downtown area of Raven Creek but couldn't think straight. Frustration and rage blinded his thoughts and clouded his judgment, knowing that he would soon join these monsters that wandered the city. He wasn't sneaking or being careful at all. Dozens of zombies were being drawn to his location. Instead of running, he turned and began swinging, taking out his frustration on the line of zombies that were marching towards him. If he was going down, he was taking as many of them as he could with him. This went on for what felt like forever. His arms were so tired from swinging that it was barely doing anything. The pain, hunger, and exhaustion were quickly settling in as well. He swung so hard that he felt his bat was about to break. He pulled out his crowbar instead and continued swinging. Franklin was too tired now. He was giving up. One grabbed him and they surrounded him. It was over. Suddenly, he shoved them all back with a mighty push. A second wind came to him as adrenaline poured through his body and he felt like he could think clearly again. The military said they had a cure. He didn't have long, but there's still a chance they could find him before he turned. Maybe it wasn't over after all. As he tried fending off the horde that was still pressing on him, another one lunged at him and lacerated his neck. If he continued fighting like this, it would be suicide. He began to flee from them and wrapped his wound. Most of the zombies in the nearby area were pulled into that group and he was hoping he could lose them. Maybe he could still make it. As he continued down the main road, he was surprised to see another survivor, Hugh, trying to escape his own group of zombies. He called out to Hugh while weaving past the undead, asking if he wanted to join his group. Hugh agreed, but fled inside the building, hoping to hide and lose the horde. Franklin considered following, but thought it was too dangerous to be indoors right now. As he tried to turn and escape, they surrounded him. He ran through the group and shoved his way past them. That was a little too close for comfort. Just a few yards further, he ran into Mark, who was fighting off even more zombies. As Franklin passed by, he asked Mark to join him, which he agreed to, but he also grabbed the attention of the majority of the horde. Franklin followed him and helped split the horde by leading them around the parked car to give Mark a better chance at escaping. He called back out to Mark to follow him and continued in the direction of where he thought the extraction point was located. Though, at this point he was pretty disoriented with exactly where he was in the city now. He lost Mark and it was too dangerous to go back looking for him now. Further ahead, another survivor named Hugh was dealing with his own small zombie problem. In the corner of his eye, he saw that Hugh was surrounded and heard the sounds of one of the zombies bite into his flesh. Maybe there's still a chance to save... Oh, well, never mind then. All of these other survivors, but it was too much chaos for even a single one of them to group up with Franklin. He had to keep moving though. He was running on borrowed time now. He knew the horde of zombies were still on his trail and found a medical center where he was hoping he could lay low and maybe even find some medical supplies. He cautiously moved inside the building, ready to face any lingering threats inside. Franklin could hear the crowds of zombies outside. Hopefully they couldn't track him to this location. He went deeper inside the building and closed the door behind him, just in case. Around the corner was an empty room that didn't have any supplies, until a zombie creeped out from the corner where it was hiding. A few well-placed swings of the crowbar dropped to the ground where Franklin stood over its body and dealt the final blow. He heard more zombie activity outside. It was time to move on. Well, that was until he saw one moving right past, which meant there were probably a dozen more right behind. Maybe it would be better to lay low for a few more minutes after all. And what better way to kill some time and refuel than a beautiful bean break? Franklin dug a can of delicious beans out of his bag and opened the can as quietly as he could. He fled back into the back room, where he would be more secure. He slumped into a chair and let his muscles untense for a moment and began to pour the canned beans into his mouth. He was in rough shape, but at least his stomach was full now. He'd have to keep moving though. Hoping things calmed down enough outside, he slid the door open and crept through, but was immediately jumped by a zombie. Surprised and even more panicked, he was still able to take it down and take it out. Another one closed in. It looks like a few were still able to track him. Did they track his blood? Did he make too much noise? He finished the second one off and paused for more, but it was calm again, at least for now. He fell back into another room and realized this was the medical storage. Maybe he could find a few pick-me-ups in here. Antidepressants? He'll take it. Painkillers? He'll definitely take those. But before he could even swallow the pills, a zombie stumbled through the doorway. He managed to shove it to the ground and finished it off, but as he wiped the blood from his face, another one was coming in. This wasn't good. The zombie was blocking his only exit, and Franklin knew that if he didn't get out now, he was going to die in that storage closet. Before he could finish it off, two more poured into the room. He slowly backed up while swinging with the little strength he had left, but his back was against the wall now. But when one collapsed, another zombie took its place. More and more began to follow in. He was trapped. Was this it? There. Franklin saw his opening and ran past the crowd of zombies trying to trap him inside. He rammed his shoulder into another zombie as he ran through the exit. Outside, even more zombies were banging against the windows. It was a good thing he got out of there when he did. That was way too close for comfort, but he made it out in one piece and escaped the majority of the zombies that were pursuing him. It wasn't even 6 p.m., but waking up at 4 a.m. meant he was going hard for 14 hours straight and was exhausted and still had searing pain through his body. If he didn't get some rest soon, he would surely make a mistake from the drowsiness and get himself killed. Up the stairs was what looked like another apartment building. It was a risky move, but he was going to search for a room where he could get a little sleep. As he climbed the stairs to the second floor, he could hear the groans of the dead in the streets, and maybe inside this building too. At this point, it was too hard to tell where it was coming from. This apartment still had a working door, which was a good sign. He shut the door as he crept in, but kept his guard up, even though he could barely keep his eyes open at this point. A lone zombie in the living room walked towards him. Even in his drowsy state, he could easily handle a single one. This bedroom still had a working door as well. It couldn't get much safer than that at this point. He closed the door and immediately fell on his bed. He was asleep instantly. He woke up at 2 a.m. and wasn't able to fall back to sleep, but today was his last chance to get to his destination, or he would surely succumb to the infection. It was too dark to travel with his crowbar, so he turned on his flashlight and readied his hammer. He was still in a great deal of pain, and very anxious at this point too. When Franklin got to the exit, he quickly opened and closed the door. As he suspected, a zombie was right outside. It didn't put up much of a fight, and he moved on. He moved down the stairs, and a whole group of them between Franklin and the exit. He returned to the second floor, put his flashlight and hammer away, and readied his crowbar. Things were about to get messy. Even more came from further down the hall, and in a panic, Franklin went back up the stairs instead of past them to the exit, a decision he was sure he'd regret. Up the stairs, a zombie was approaching his flank. They must have heard the commotion in the upper floors and came to investigate. Again, he found himself cornered in a tight space, and the only exit was blocked by too many zombies. He shoved the group to the ground and tried to take them out, but too many were still closing in on him. It was now or never. Franklin braced himself and charged down the hall, into the zombies approaching him. He felt multiple thuds against his shoulder, and he got caught at the corner of the stairs, but was able to dodge the zombies' bites and continued down to the first floor. Even more were waiting down below, but with a few dodges and weaves, he was out the door, down the stairs, and outside from that death trap. After that, he had a couple hours where he was able to avoid most of the zombies in the streets and continue traveling in the general direction of the extraction zone, but he was almost completely lost at this point. While he wandered through this large alleyway, he encountered another survivor named Derek. Derek seemed quite capable, and Franklin thought it would be smart to group up. Derek agreed, which was good timing since it seemed like the zombies were on his trail now. Franklin asked him to stay close. They could hear more zombies coming and had to get out of there. They thought maybe they could sneak through this building and get a better idea of where they were in the city. Franklin used his crowbar to pry open the door and they went inside. He went into the second floor and took another quick bean break. After filling up on more beans, he realized that Derek was missing and he heard a loud commotion downstairs. To his surprise, Derek was freaking out and attracting the zombies to them. Franklin was confused and tried to get him to stop, but Derek wouldn't relent. He was incoherent at this point, mumbling about how hot he was. Was he bit? Was he turning? As Franklin was killing the zombie that was about to bite Derek, Derek ran straight into Franklin, causing him to stumble and almost got him killed by the zombie. Fortunately, he was still able to kill the zombie, but Derek kept ramming into Franklin and wouldn't calm down. Frank followed him into the other room where he continued mumbling about being hot and began taking off all of his clothes. At this point, killing him would be a mercy. He wasn't proud of what he was doing, but he would want someone to do the same to him if he was starting to turn. He followed Derek into the other room, and a final blow put him out of his misery. He took the spear from his body since it seemed like a formidable weapon, but wasted too much time there. It was time to leave. The spear felt good to wield and the blade was sharp. Franklin liked his new weapon. He really liked his new weapon. On top of that, he found a pristine cowboy hat on his fresh kill, which was definitely a better look than the bunny ears. Still in tons of pain, he was starting to feel queasy as well. That was a bad sign. He didn't have much time left. He continued wandering in the general direction of where he thought he needed to go when he passed an open storage unit and he found what might have been the best thing he could have ever expected. A pristine copy of Kirby's Dream Land for the Game Boy, which he happened to pocket one from earlier. Franklin closed the door to the storage unit. This might be the only chance he gets to experience the bliss of the very first Kirby game ever made. He ignored the commotion outside and sat on the ground and popped the game in. For a brief period of time, Franklin lost himself in the game and forgot about the pain and the worries of the ruined world he lived in. But as quickly as he lost himself, he finished the game and snapped back to reality. Something was going on outside of the storage unit. It sounded odd. He readied his spear and slid the door open. Zombies were right outside and he caught their attention. He began to run, but he realized it wasn't the Game Boy that drew them here. It was some idiot locked inside a different unit making as much noise as possible. Franklin called to them and tried opening the door from the inside, but it was a futile effort. He fell back before the zombies caught up to him, and they stopped at the door, clawing at it, wearing the lockdown. Franklin watched from the bushes as they tore down the door and poured into the storage unit. He got closer to see what happened. It wasn't pretty. He left before they could get him for dessert and continued exploring Raven Creek. Franklin kept moving, but he was worried since it was almost 5 p.m. and he still didn't find the extraction point, but he continued in the direction he thought it was in until he jumped a fence and saw nothing but wilderness. He traveled all the way through Raven Creek. Not only that, but he recognized the building behind him from his map. This was right by the extraction point. There was no time to waste. He turned around and started heading back into the city. He moved down a block and looked across the street. There it was, the helipad marking the location of the extraction point. And he didn't hear any helicopters flying by, so he wasn't too late. He crossed the small fence and circled around to the front of the building. It looked empty, but anything could be waiting for him inside. One flight of stairs. He was so close now. Another. And another. He was so tired. It felt like 100 flights of stairs at this point. Until finally, he made it to the top. He did it. He actually did it. Franklin was so tired now. He sat down. All he wanted to do was rest. But he had to focus. He pulled the radio off his belt and called into the emergency broadcast signal like they instructed 3 days ago. He waited for a moment, and his call was answered. They said, "Hold tight, we're coming." Franklin felt like death. He was afraid if he fell asleep, he would never wake up. To distract himself, he pulled out the Game Boy one last time and played Kirby's Dream Land again. It reminded him of better days long past. Franklin heard the sounds of a helicopter in the distance. Not much longer. He couldn't keep his eyes open anymore. He decided to rest them for just a minute until help arrived.
Survivor spotted at the extraction point. Closing in. Hold on, hold on. False alarm. No survivors at the extraction point. I repeat, no survivors at the extraction point. Turn it around, boys. Maybe we'll have better luck next time.
I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to announce that the Pixel Rookie dedicated Project Zomboid server is now open to everyone. You just have to join my Discord using the link in the description below. Come join us and have some fun. And a big thanks to all my patrons who are helping support the channel. I really appreciate you. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, have a good one.